Fluttershy's Lesson by FeroMcPigletron.
But why?
Sweetie Belle cried, tears streaming down her face.
Quit your blubbering.
Scootaloo said harshly. She herself was fighting off the tight feeling in her chest. She turned her head away as she stamped her hoof.
She was just a chicken. But we saved her!
Sweetie Belle's usually delicate timbre cracked in her grief.
We were the cutie mark creature catchers. When she ran to the Evergreen Forest, we helped bring her back from the cockatrice.
The little white pony wailed.
Why'd you have to die?
Oh no.
I'll watch Applebloom in the meantime. I'll do Applebloom in the meantime then.
Now it loads. Where are we?
Lol. A first Applebloom line.
It was just her time.
Applebloom said softly. She had lived long enough on the farm to know the facts of life and death. She stared solemnly at her two dear friends.
It happens.
Yes. Yes, it does.
The three little ponies looked behind them as the quiet steps of a pink-haired mare broke into their small circle. The young fillies gave way as the Pegasus turned her gaze to the fragile body held in their ring.
Elizabeth,
Fluttershy said.
We wanted to borrow your songbird music sheet. You know, from when you taught birds to sing.
Scootaloo began.
We already had the electric guitars. We were going to be cutie mark rock and roll tweeter instructors.
We didn't know where you were.
Applebloom continued.
We knocked at your door and checked the backyard. We were passing by the chicken coop.
And we just found her, just like that.
Sweetie Belle bawled again.
I thought she was sleeping, and Scootaloo wanted to spook her and make her run around, and Applebloom said no, and we argued and shouted, and I thought we woke her by accident, but she didn't move, and she just lay there, and she just didn't move.
Applebloom started forward to comfort the more fragile white pony, but it was Scootaloo who spread her wing and drew Sweetie Belle to her shoulder for support. Fluttershy looked upon them kindly as the Crusaders huddled close together as Sweetie Belle's sobs eventually quieted down to sniffs. The Pegasus then turned to the still body of the hen and had it on her back.
come on.
Fluttershy said softly to the puzzled, wide eyes of the fillies.
Come with me.
Fluttershy started walking away quickly, not pausing to see if the little ponies were following her. The Crusaders exchanged puzzled glances at each other, then ran alongside the Pegasus to keep up.
Where?
Applebloom puffed.
Where are we going?
To the Everfree Forest.
Fluttershy said.
Huh?
Sweetie Belle said, surprised.
But it's dangerous there.
Not to Elizabeth, it isn't.
Fluttershy replied, as if it was an answer.
Not anymore.
It wasn't far. They had reached the edge of the darkened branches of the woods in short order. Its shadowed trees shrouded the inner paths, but Fluttershy stepped forward without hesitation and disappeared from view.
She's gone.
Applebloom exclaimed, peering within.
What do we do?
Sweetie Belle quavered.
She told her to follow her, but that's the Everfree Forest. I'll tell you what we're going to do.
Scootaloo jumped up and flew to perch unsteadily over on a nearby tree branch.
We're going in there, we're going to see what's what, because, well, because what?
Sweetie Belle asked.
Well,
Because we're the Cutie Mark Crusaders. That's what.
Applebloom finished. She stepped forward boldly.
yeah, we're not afraid.
Scootaloo shouted. She launched herself up.
We're the Cutie Mark Crusaders. We're not chicken.
She landed on the ground and dove into the darkness.
Elizabeth was a chicken.
Sweetie Belle sniffed as she trailed after her through the gloom.
No, she's not.
Applebloom whispered as she too was swallowed up by the shadows.
Now she's just a body.
The three fillies maintained a silent course as they walked through the woods. It was the only way they could hear the heavier clip-clopping of the older Pegasus's hooves on the ground somewhere ahead of them. The brambles hindered their passage, and they were forced to take side avenues and avoid low-hanging branches. Soon the sound of hooves stopped. The Crusaders emerged from the bushes to find themselves in a small clearing. Fluttershy stood on a large, flat rock placed squarely at the center of the area. The body lay in the middle of the stone floor.
Every living being has different lifespans.
Fluttershy whispered quietly as she looked, apparently not noticing the arrival of the fillies.
Some spend a long time alive in the sun, while for others, it can pass as briefly as a candle's flame going out.
The young ponies approached the rock and gasped when Fluttershy turned her gaze to them quickly.
But it is not the end. Life, Life is a circle.
She said.
It continues, it endures, it survives. A part of each living creature is immortal.
Fluttershy stepped away from the body as she spoke.
No longer held by earthling trappings, it is released into the universe to join the essence of everything itself. It is free to be a part of eternity, forever free. Ever free.
Ever free.
The Crusaders didn't know which one of them spoke. The word might have come from her own mouth unknowingly, but they all stared at the body of the chicken that was once Elizabeth, but now was just an empty, mortal shell. Something changed in the air. Sounds were now filtering through the once still Everfree forest. Noises were heard from far away, but were slowly making their way towards their direction. The Crusaders were too surprised at the sudden change to be alarmed.
Come on.
Fluttershy said softly to the puzzled, wide eyes of the fillies.
Come with me, quickly.
The three little ponies complied. Fluttershy was tidying up in the chicken coop. The Cutie Mark Crusaders were outside, standing on one hoof to another, trembling and sorting through their experience.
What?
Scootaloo was the first to talk.
What was happening back there? Were those others... Were they going to...
That's life.
Fluttershy answered as she bustled within the coop.
That's how it continues. How they endure. How we survive.
Through death?
Sweetie Belle said, more than a little horrified to hear herself say it.
We eat we eat apples, don't we?
Fluttershy said gently as she stepped outside.
Do you think that counts as death for them?
Applejack would certainly like to think so.
Applebloom smiled. She already had a sample of the lesson, but hadn't gotten the full taste.
The trees are like babies to her.
Every living being has different lifespans.
Sweetie Belle recalled aloud. She suddenly gasped.
But you have so many animal friends with different lifespans.
And you live so close to the Everfree forest.
Applebloom observed.
Why is that important? Oh no!
Scootaloo was turning to her friend when realization struck.
It's so you can bring the offering to the wilds fresh?
I don't want to delay what has to be done.
The Pegasus smiled, just a little sadly.
But the chorus birds! And Angel Bunny!
Sweetie Belle gasped a second time, then uttered in quick succession.
Opolis, Winona, Owlicious, Gumpy, Spike!
Fluttershy nodded. A third gasp escaped Sweetie Belle's lips.
And us too, right?
Applebloom followed.
And for every pony in Ponyville, that's our fate?
Appetizers!
Scootaloo declared with relish.
We're welcome appetizers once our candles go whoosh, out like a light.
The little Pegasus emphasized her point by spreading her wings and making a small draft of wind.
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Fluttershy conceded. She looked down at the downhearted faces of Applebloom, Scootaloo, and Sweetie Belle, then reached out to hold them close. She hugged them as tightly as she could.
But it doesn't matter if every pony's candle stays lit long into the night or burns out in a brief time. What only matters
Fluttershy smiled kindly.
is how brightly you shine. So shine, Cutie Mark Crusaders.
Fluttershy whispered under her breath as she sent the 3 young fillies home to their respective families. She watched the 3 ponies gallop away, talking and planning excitedly on what they would do on their next Cutie Mark questing adventure. She stared until they disappeared from sight, then slowly went inside her own house.
Shine as brightly as you can.
The end.